part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
And welcome to another Reghi and Roda podcast powered by Cleveland Party Rentals and Newark Auto Body right here on the Press Play Podcast Network. And a shout out to our great producer, Ty Quartz, who makes sure all of you out there in the podcatosphere are able to find us wherever you get your podcasts. And Michael Reghi, since we last chatted, we expected it to happen, and sure enough, it did. The Cleveland Cavaliers decided to go in a different direction with their head coach letting go of JB Bickerstaff after 4+ seasons with the organization, the last 2 in the playoffs. This past season, they win a playoff series and lose to the Boston Celtics, who are a win away from going to the NBA Finals this year, Michael. So I don't think either one of us were surprised that this move was made. Do you agree with the move, I guess, is the better way to put it?
Kenny, I'll be very honest. I kind of have mixed feelings about it. I understand the move, and yet it seems like to me, but before I say what I'm going to say, It's pretty much this way around NBA all the time. This seems like it had a lot of player inducement involved with it, Ken.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, hell, 90% of the time, that's usually the way it is when especially an NBA coach gets the ziggy. I don't know if it's had much with an NFL head coach and a baseball manager, but certainly in the league, it's that way a lot. Yeah, I thought JB Bickerstaff, Ken, maybe deserved a little bit better fate, although that's probably just going bottom line on win-loss. He did have a, winning record during his time in Cleveland, but they're about now, at least they say they are. It's about winning a championship. So I get it. I understand it. And let me ask you, how much of the handprints of one Donovan Mitchell do you think this had at least at the beginning of it, and maybe heavily so as it wore on?
I think that had a big factor in this decision. I think it was a big factor, Michael. I really do. I watched 2 or 3 times to the Kobe Altman press conference from this past week, right? And he was asked how much influence Donovan had, and Kobe kind of sidestepped it, didn't answer it directly towards the head coach, but said they loved his input, they want it, and he helped us land free agents last year, right? So he kind of took it down the path of, Donovan's input is important.
Niang and Strus?
I guess.
That's their 2 free agents.
Exactly.
Yes, Niang and Strus. Okay.
Right. So
I'll just leave that right there then.
And that's where it should hang for right now. So I think he either understood the question and went around it, or misunderstood it and thought they were asking about Donovan's input in the free. Bottom line is, all the players have exit interviews. You know that. Bottom line is, we've heard various or read various media reports on social media, I should say, that Donovan wasn't really happy with some of the things JB did. And so whether or not they directly asked, should we keep him or hire a new guy, I'm sure they asked for his input on JB Bickerstaff from his 2 years in Cleveland. And I think Donovan Mitchell, has some guys out there maybe that he knows he has played for as assistants who he might like to see in place of JB Bickerstaff. And we're going to get to Johnny Bryant and Alex Jensen a little bit later on in this podcast as 2 potential candidates maybe that the Cavaliers will interview because of their ties to Donovan Mitchell. But I don't think Donovan was the only player, maybe, Michael, that spoke up not in favor of JB Bickerstaff.
That's fair. Here's the question I have for you. At the zenith, meaning where the Cavaliers want to go, do you think that JB Bickerstaff has that capacity, potential with everything that's needed of a head coach to be able to take the Cavaliers to compete for an NBA championship.
I do not. And that's why I did not have a problem with them releasing him. I wasn't a huge JB Bickerstaff guy from the get-go. He did a heck of a job taking over for Beeline and getting them to the playoffs the last 2 years. But there always seemed every year I looked at them and I thought they should have been a little bit better than what they were, even though they made the playoffs. And I think JB might have been offensively part of the reasons they didn't reach that level. Defensively, I think he did an outstanding job, and it's nice to have two anchors back there when they're both healthy, and Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. But I think offensively, this team was challenged, and I think that's where they're moving forward in that different direction. Let me give you the quote here from Kobe Altman, Michael. All right.
Yeah.
I wrote down these words, not quote, but paraphrase. Not something specific, just a new approach, a different voice, a fresh set of eyes to move forward. We're not far off. We have a tremendous amount of talent. So what I took away from that was, I got you the talent, meaning Kobe Altman. I got you the players. You have a roster that should have gone farther last year and this year than they did. So I'm blaming the coach. I'm not blaming myself and my front office. And what front office and president of basketball ops is ever going to blame themselves?
Correct. And I'm with you on that. Yes. And with that in mind, though, again, you look at this roster, the way it was put together.
Yeah.
And you can, as things go on, you just wonder, I mean, how flawed is it? They loved they called it their core four.
Right.
And they love that group. And then, again, I mean, the way it played out, which how much disfavor. Max Strus became your fifth starter.
Yeah.
Which I don't believe. To me, I've said it before here on Hour and Hour, and I'll say it again for the conversation. You aren't winning anything of significance if you got Max Strus starting for you. That's me.
Okay.
And, if that's something that those other four better be all worldly then. Because I don't believe that's what type of player that Max Strus is. Okay, so to me, they have to do something about that right there. You got to get a fifth starter, man. You got to get another guy that can play that position. Now, again, if you want to play Karis LeVert there, he'd average 15, 16 a game a night for you. I know he would. He averaged 14 a game this year, Kenny, playing 27 minutes a night, coming off the bench. So that's a way to go. I think, though, he is probably at its essence more of a 2 than a 3, although you can do interchangeable things. But then let's say you did that. To me, now you got a big hole at leading your bench. Now, who's the guy that's leading your bench? And please, people, don't tell me Sam Merrill, please. Okay? Don't tell me Sam Merrill. And we're going to find out what Craig Porter Jr. is all about this year. Kenny, I'm interested to see that. I think he may get a chance to play this year if he continues to be on the squad. I mean, in a more meaningful role, right?
Mm-hmm. But
to me, you need a couple of more guys offensively that are going to be able to get it done for you. And there's too much up and down with Evan Mobley. Overall, I'd say if you look at it, he had a good year. I'm hoping that he develops into that guy that is a dominant front court offensive player. You ready to risk your mortgage on that yet, Ken, though?
I have to, don't I? Since I drafted him 3rd overall Don't I have to count on that progression between year 3 and 4
Absolutely.
now, based on what I saw in the last game of the playoffs against the Celtics when the other big was out in Jared Allen and he was the focal point at center? I'll put it to you this. There are 2 guys that I believe in on this team. Rephrase that. One guy I really believe in and another guy I'm starting to believe in, okay? The one guy I believe in is Donovan Mitchell, all right? He's the only true player on that team that I believe in and I build around if I can keep him. That's a big if, because he's going to potentially could say no to the contract extension. And I think the ceiling for Evan Mobley is pretty high. So for me, it's Mitchell and Mobley and then everybody else, and that includes Jared Allen and Darius Garland in that level just below Evan Mobley as potential trade candidates to get that starting wing player and maybe upgrade the bench as well.
Well, let's get to it. Should they move Darius Garland?
Yes. If they're signing Donovan Mitchell to a contract extension, no doubt in my mind, and there are rumblings supposedly coming from, Rich Paul and Clutch Sports, his agent and the agency, that Darius Garland would ask for a trade. And this, again, hasn't been confirmed by Clutch Sports, but that's what's making the rounds right now, that he would ask for a trade if Donovan Mitchell signs that $210 million extension this offseason.
$210 million. Here's a $64 million question for you. Other than it's because it's just the way dudes roll in the league. Can you tell me what the hell Darius Garland has got so much up his butt about playing with Donovan, having to play with Donovan Mitchell? What is it? Is it just I should be the guy? Is that what he's trying to tell us?
Isn't that why Kyrie left? Right?
Yeah.
Kyrie left. He wanted to be the focal point. He wanted his team. He wanted to be the guy. He didn't want to play in LeBron's shadow. So I think Darius Garland feels, hey, you drafted me. I've been here longer. I was an all-star before he came here. He's hurting my progression. So get rid of me if you're going to sign on with him. That's how I think he and his people are thinking.
That's my thing, though, Ken. Hurting your progression. He should be a guy that absolutely enhances and helps your progression. Yeah. Can you explain that to me? I mean, if I'm Garland, that's the way I'm going to approach it. I mean, what the hell? You should be able to have what Donovan Mitchell brings, and with both of your capabilities, other than just the damn ego thing, I don't. Well, you 2 small guards, and I've talked about that for 2 years. But that's what they got. Is that championship winning? Not the way I see it in the NBA, but with the talent and skills they both have, why can't they make it work? Is it all Garland? Is it all Garland that's not allowing this? Or are we just not looking at the real deal with Donovan Mitchell either? Meaning, yeah, he's the best player on the basketball team, but is he not willing to acquiesce some himself for the betterment of the basketball team?
Did he not do that? Did Mitchell not do that when Garland was out and he played point guard and they won 18 of 20 games?
I think so.
Other players were involved in that offense, right? To me, I saw that. And that's why and said, well, if you get rid of Garland, you got to go get a point guard. No, you don't. You just give the ball to Donovan Mitchell. Let him be your 1, LeVert or Strus as your 2, and then go get your 3 with the trade of Garland and Allen, one or the other, or both, whatever it takes to go out and get an all-star caliber 3. To me, that's the biggest weakness. And I go back all the way to where we started this conversation about whether or not JB Bickerstaff deserved to be fired. Yes, I don't think he was the right guy moving forward for this team. Having said that, I don't think it was all his fault. I think it was partly Kobe Altman's fault for 2 players at the same position, Garland, Mitchell, 2 players at the same position elsewhere. That would be Allen and Mobley, and 2 other players playing a similar position and give you similar and consistent results in Strus and Karis LeVert. So you've got 3 sets of players where each guy's just like the other at his position. So do you need 6 of the same player? That's the part that drives me nuts, and nobody's getting on Kobe Altman for that. I don't think he has put together a well-balanced team based on, having 2 players at the same position in 3 different positions.
That's fair, and that's legitimate. I also think whoever this hire is,
Yeah,
and Kenny, I think Kenny Atkinson's got to be a guy that they look at real well.
okay.
Because he had a couple of years of success with the Brooklyn Nets. I know he had the one very bad year as well in between it. But to me right now, I wouldn't have a problem if Atkinson was the guy that was brought in here. I don't know. I've got this feeling that with this roster and hopefully some additions, he'd do well.
Reg, I put together a list, right, for the Kenny and JT show, Monday through Friday, 3 to 7, WHBC 1480 AM. JT and I are talking about this now, did all week, this past week, right? We'll get into it even more this week now, because Kobe told us at his press conference they were going to take this weekend to recharge the batteries, step away a little bit, and then come back and really get after it as far as the head coaching search goes. Now, me personally, I think they already had their list. Dan's going to be involved. You know that. He's not going to let them, put together a list, even though Kobe said he'd put the list together and then take the list to Dan and have Dan, vote on it or whatever. I think Dan's involved from the get-go. Dan's always involved, right? So here's the list that I've put together based on people, A, I've talked to, B, that I've read online, or C, I've heard on, TV or online as well. All right. These are names that popped up as potential candidates. Either the Cavaliers are interested in them or they would be interested in the Cavaliers coaching job. All right.
Yep.
Let's start with Johnny Bryant, New York Knicks assistant coach, was also an assistant with the Utah Jazz from 2014 to 2020 when Donovan Mitchell played there, right? Yes. And of course, there's the ties right there to Donovan Mitchell. Alex Jensen, current Dallas assistant coach. They're a win away from going to the NBA Finals, surprisingly, right? And Alex is an assistant there, but he spent the previous 10 years as an assistant where? The Utah Jazz.
Right, correct.
More ties to Donovan Mitchell. And then one of the things you and I talked about off the air, we know that Dan likes to hire from within, Dan Gilbert, right? Well, guess what? Alex Jensen, former head coach of the Canton Charge. So they already know him. He doesn't have to be vetted as much. They know what he did, just like Jordi Fernandez. I think if Jordi Fernandez didn't take the Nets job, he would have been one of the top 3 candidates for the Cavaliers job.
Agreed. Yep.
Because of his ties to the Charge, right? Yep. So we got Johnny Bryant, Alex Jensen, Chris Quinn, Heat assistant coach, James Borrego, Pelicans assistant coach, Frank Vogel, just fired by the Phoenix Suns this past year, NBA championship coach, right? Dave Jager, the assistant coach at Milwaukee right now, but was a head coach with Memphis and Sacramento. Micah Nori, who is the current assistant head coach with Minnesota. You see him walking the sidelines with Finch laid up with that knee injury. Sam Cassell, no head coaching experience, but currently the Celtics assistant coach. Kenny Atkinson, you've already mentioned him, Golden State assistant coach, head coach with the Brooklyn Nets for 4 years. So he's got, ties to or has experience as a head coach. He's only 56 years old. And then the old man that was mentioned, and I think this is him reaching out to the Cavs, Terry Stotts, who's 66. And was a head coach for many years, over 400 career wins. But I think he's too old for this group of players and what they're trying to do. So that's my list of guys I've heard either they're interested in or those coaches would be interested in the Cavs job.
Yeah. For me, Borrega, right?
Yep.
You said that. Yep. Atkinson.
Okay.
I would say they'll be in the final look-see. And maybe, as you said, I think Chris Quinn might be a guy that gets a long look by them too.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Yep.
I think they're going younger, Michael. I think they have to with today's athlete, right?
Yeah.
And the fragile mental makeup of some of these players who have been coddled all the way from junior high to high school, especially in AAU ball, right? And, if it's not going their way, Kyrie, even though he's having a resurgence now with Luka Doncic and Dallas, Kyrie kind of set the tone for all that, making it okay to dictate what you want to do, where you want to go, and even leave a championship organization.
Yeah, well, I think so. And does the potential, and it's sure looking that way, of a Dallas Mavs, Boston Celtics NBA final turn on? Think we might be able to get 6-7 games out of that?
I think we could get 6. I think Luka can win you one by himself, right?
Yeah.
And I think the Celtics can lose you one by themselves, having an off night shooting, from distance. I'm still going to stick with the Celtics in that series, but I want to see what the odds are if that's it, so I could hedge my bet a little bit and see what kind of money I could get on the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what we're looking at. It's certainly, like that takes a lot of a real strong look-see right now with both of them up 3-0.
Yeah.
As we are doing our podcast tonight, Boston and Indiana are playing game 4, and then they'll follow suit with a little disappointed, Kenny, in the Minnesota Timberwolves. But look, none of them have been here before, really. So
that's why I thought they'd lose last round, Michael, and they got through last round.
Yeah.
But now it's showing up, right? I mean, Cat has not. Speaking of showing up or not showing up, Karl Anthony Towns is a complete no-show in this series from beyond the arc overall, however you want to put it. He is just, he didn't play the last 9 minutes of game 2, and then he did play in the fourth quarter of game 3 and was 0 for 4 from the field and went 0 for 8 from 3-point range in that game. And he's one of those soft guys mentally for me that I'm talking about. You need to have that right coach to massage that, that childish ego, if you will. Unfortunately, that's showing up at the wrong time, I think, for the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah, it's look, we picked Boston. I think we both did, didn't we? Before,
yes.
Before the season began, and certainly as the playoffs began. And honestly, I don't see anything changing that. I'm just hoping, as we said, and it's looking like it's going to be Dallas. Can we get 6 games at least? Me. If we can get to 6, you got a series.
Right.
You got a competitive series because you hit game 6, somebody's up 3-2. So. Let's see if we can get that and have an NBA final that keeps all of our interests for 2 weeks.
Yeah, let's hope so. We'll see if Kristaps Porzingis is able to return. Right. In fact, I didn't even look tonight as we're taping this.
Nope, they ruled him out.
So
he's not playing tonight.
He's not dressed tonight. All right, so there you go.
Can you imagine that? Again, without him, they still, again, it just goes to show you the riches of this basketball team. And I guess, you got Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Drew Holiday. But Porzingis Kenny was a big part of that team this year. And so he hadn't played a lick, and yet they look like they don't miss a beat. So I'm going to stay with them. I think regardless of, and it's sure looking like, I can't see Minnesota winning 4 straight. So I like them to beat Dallas, as we thought.
Only way Minnesota comes back to have a chance to win is if Luka injures himself even more and can't play.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's the only way. And I don't see that happen. I think Kyrie might even be able to win one game by himself.
He might, the way he's playing.
Exactly.
I tell you, I look at the guy and he's amazing. He's amazing when it's necessary. It almost seems like, Kenny, he can just flip the switch whenever he needs to go into, don't worry about it, anybody. Kyrie's here. I'll take care of it. We're going to win. And I got to give the guy that. He's proven that, many times over. And I know there've been some big rough spots in his NBA career where people couldn't stand him and what have you. But like I said, Ken, when it's time to win, he usually does exactly that.
Yeah, he's had a resurgence in teaming up with Luka Doncic as they're one win away, and that'll take place tomorrow night, Tuesday night, as we're taping this on Memorial Day. And by the way, Reg, before we get to our break, a shout out to all the families out there that have lost loved ones in the military recently or a while ago, right? That's what this day is all about, Memorial Day, where we honor the true heroes who made the ultimate sacrifice, who gave their lives for the freedom that you and I and Ty and everybody get to enjoy here in the United States of America, doing podcasts and democracy and everything like that. So thoughts and prayers to those families who are still hurting, and I can understand why, that lost someone in the armed services who made that ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah, our military, just the absolute guts of our country, Kenny.
Yep.
And I mean that in every way that is good and right and just possible. I don't know what the hell position we'd be in without them. So yes, tremendous wave of the red, white, and blue to all of you that are a part of that and take care of us day in and day out.
All right, how about a different red, white, and blue when we come back? The Cleveland Guardians sporting their new City Connect jerseys, winning baseball games at an alarming rate to some of us, if not all of us, including people in the front office right now with the best record in the American League. Michael and I will touch on what Stephen Vogt and the Guardians are doing right to be in first place in the AL Central on Memorial Day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Holly Wetzel.
And I'm Tybus Powell.
And we are your hosts of The Orange is Oranger, a Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. We give you all the dog pound coverage that you'll need to get you through the regular season, hopeful postseason, and I'd say off-season, Tybus, but is there really ever an off-season for this team?
Thankfully for our podcast, Holly, there really never is when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. Don't miss our breakdown of each week's matchup, game recaps, and any and all news out of Berea to feed your Browns appetite. As we know, Holly, dogs gotta eat.
Yes, they do. So hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode of the Orange is Oranger, Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey, everybody. Always want to tell you about our good friends at Cleveland Party Rentals. They're your go-to for memorable events and parties. Now, their approach is very simple. As I've been telling you, they treat your event as exactly as if it were their very own. So they're going to help you alleviate all the stress of the event coordination that you so often get. This way, you see, you can savor the moments that matter. They're dedicated to offering you pricing that's clear and completely free from hidden fees, and that's coupled with one of the most robust cancellation policies in the industry in case maybe you get a change in plans, right? That happens once in a while. They have a tailgate package I want to tell you about. You can lock in your games for the season or even put your Super Bowl party together in the summer so you're ready to go in February. Here's what you get. High-quality outdoor screen and projector with immersive sound, double bowl frozen drink machine, a popcorn machine, 2-tap beer jockey box. You get a front row seat. Everybody gets that. It allows you to unleash the ultimate entertainment experience. That game day bundle I just told you about, I know you heard me. It's a complete package that transforms your backyard into a cinematic and gaming paradise. Here's the best part. Ready for this now? Get ready to write this down. Listeners, all of our Reghi and Roda podcast listeners, use code CLEPartiesRock. I'll spell that for you. CLEPARTIESROCK for 10% off your booking. Do it now at Cleveland Party Rentals.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen. Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable, and we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey, gang, the Roadman, Kenny Roda here from the R&R podcast. If you've been in an accident, first of all, I hope you're okay. Secondly, if you are and your car's not, then guess what? You need to look no further than Newark Auto Body and Zanesville Auto Body. Why? They're safe, they're reliable, their collision repairs are what they do best. It's their business. They are located in Newark and in Zanesville, and they are a local family-run and veteran-owned business serving those areas, Newark, Zanesville, and the surrounding areas. And how about this? They work with all the insurance providers to make your experience hassle-free. You're already down in the dumps because your car's dinged up, right? You don't need a hassle from the insurance company. That's the other great thing about them. Plus, you can ask about their special discounts for U.S. military veterans. You want to check them out online? Here's where you go. autobodyofnewark.com or autobodyofzanesville.com. And to get your repair started today, instead of checking them out online, pick up the phone, do it the old-fashioned way. Call 740-899-4111 and tell them Reghi and Roda sent you. And welcome back to the Reghi and Roda podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network. And a shout out again to Cleveland Party Rentals. Hey, you need somebody. If you're going to throw a party, you want to have a good time, you got to call them. Or if your car's dinged up, banged up, you ran into something or somebody ran into you, check out Newark Auto Body. And we thank them for jumping on board with us here on the R&R podcast. And Michael Reghi, here we are on Memorial Day. And unfortunately, the Guardians lost on Memorial Day today, but that snapped a 9-game winning streak and has them at 36-18 through the first 54 games of this season, and that's good for first place in the AL Central. And last time I checked, best record or second best record in the American League. And every time a week goes by, they continue to do it. I keep asking, Michael, how are they doing it?
Kenny, I'll tell you what. First of all, I think, when you just look at from a baseball perspective, before we get into the job that Stephen Vogt is doing and how the front office put this team together, and even some of the players that are that's not named Jose Ramirez that are having major years that maybe some of us didn't see coming. Listen, Ken, I mean, to me, and I was with some Guardian fans on the X over the weekend too. 50 games to me, that tells you who you are. Okay. When you play 50 games of a Major League Baseball season. Now, look, of course, we know that, but the times you may be great, and then unfortunately things go bad in September. I don't see that happening to this baseball team. They've got through 50 games. That record is number one in the American League, right?
Before the day started, they were number one in the American League, and I believe number two in all of baseball before today started. I don't know what everybody else did.
Right, yeah. So, again, and we're talking about that. To me, I look at that 50-game poll, and when you get there and beyond it, Kenny, I kind of think this is whom you are. Good, bad, or indifferent, this is who you are. And for the Cleveland Guardians, I would say that's pretty damn good with an exclamation point here through the first 54 games of this baseball season.
I mean, you've doubled the difference, right? It's 36 wins, 18 losses. Anytime you're double the amount of losses in the win column, that means you're having a pretty good season. You're playing close to 700 baseball.
Yes.
For you, unfortunately, Kansas City out of nowhere, like the Guardians, playing very good baseball as well. I think they're only 2.5 back of the Guardians.
Right.
And the Guardians, I'm looking up at my schedule. They've got the Royals coming up the first full week of June at home for 3, and then they end the month of June with 4 games in Kansas City. So we'll see them 7 times head-to-head in the month of June, which might tell us a little bit more about both of those teams. But the fact that on this road trip, they swept L.A., now they dropped the first game to Colorado. If they can win the next 2 and win another series, that's what Stephen Vogt has been preaching, right? If you win series, you're going to win, games, a lot of games, and you're going to win a playoff spot more than likely.
There's no doubt about that. And playing at a 667 win percentage, again, this is you're well past the quarter pole of the baseball season now. And Kenny, I was looking at, and if we want to say this team kind of is going to go by their pitching, they've been getting tremendous work from both the starting staff, in most cases, and the bullpen. But Ken, I was looking at some offensive numbers today. Their team hitting average, 16th overall. Not spectacular.
Right.
Their team home runs, 11th overall. Decent, but not spectacular. They are, but then you go to the earned run average. See, now that 3.30 ERA that I think is one you always got to take a look at when you're trying to find the, can your team remain prominent? Well, that pitching, as we know, I mean, you got to pitch. They pitch, Kenny. They're 4th overall with that 3.30 team ERA. So,
right.
And look, there have been guys that were given an opportunity to play, right? Not household names when they were brought to this ball club by the front office. And Kenny, for the most part, those guys have delivered, and that's why this team. Now if you didn't have Jose Ramirez, that would affect you, yes. But Kenny, you truly have virtually guys at almost every everyday player position have at times showed they're worthy of being here. I was a little bit worried, and maybe some still are, about Brian Rocchio, right? Whether he's an everyday shortstop. I'm interested to get your thoughts on that. Obviously, you hope, but the kid's 22 years old. You'd like to see him hit, but at this point, Ken, just make sure you do the work defensively, be that solid glove man, because as we know, if you got problems defensively at shortstop and at second base and in center field, that's going to show up, right? That's going to show up and cost you. And I think the kid's doing a hell of a good job defensively, Ken.
To me, it's still their weakest position, right? Shortstop is their weakest position.
Because he hasn't proven himself
right
heretofore as a big leaguer. I didn't think he was going to come start swinging the bat and, make anybody forget a young Jose Ramirez, early on. But Kenny, you got to play well defensively. And don't you feel for the most part he's done that?
Yeah, I'm not I don't get Gold Glove feeling from him, though. You know what I mean? Like with prospects, like Frankie, when Frankie came up, they were saying this 5-tool guy. He can do it all. He's Gold Glove caliber, and so yes. I was expecting if you're only going to hit 199, then I better see Gold Glove shortstop. And I think he's average right now. But to me, the shortstop position and offensively at catcher are their 2 weakest spots, right? Hedges and Naylor aren't hitting above 200. They both do a nice job of handling the staff and everything. And, Hedgie's a great guy. And the only thing I was pissed off at Stephen Vogt about was he called Hedges the heart and soul of the team. And I was like, okay, let's back it up just a little bit here.
You a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit when a guy has 15 home runs and 54 RBIs through 54 games, and he's been an MVP finalist, 3 or 4 times in the last 6 years. The heart and soul of this team is Jose Ramirez, Steve. I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to build up a guy who can't hit worth shit, right? Because of what he does in the locker room and handling the staff. That's great. And it's fun. And yeah, pour water on each other. Whip-de freaking do, but let's not get carried away. Jose Ramirez is the heart and soul, the leader of this team. So for me, I'd still like to see it upgrade at the catcher position and at the shortstop position. Having said that, hey, it's working right now. Let's hope it continues to work. And remember this, Stephen Kwan's been out for a few weeks, and hell, they've played, they have a higher winning percentage with Kwan out of the lineup than they do with him in the lineup. But
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I'll take him back in that leadoff spot and then moving Fry or Freeman down a little further, which deepens that lineup with the exception of shortstop and catcher.
Yeah, well, and the little man, Jose Ramirez, Kenny, I mean, he is absolutely incredible. I mean, the guy, he has, look, there's still, I'm convinced that the competition, the others, pitching staffs, they still don't have a real good feel for how to pitch him.
Yeah.
And that's a testament to him and what he is as a hitter. I don't think he's got, most guys, well, we're going to, we'll jam him in with the fastball and then go low and away with the slider and the breaking stuff and throw in an occasional changeup. It doesn't seem to phase Jose Ramirez.
Right.
Yeah, sure. I mean, he's going to have some 0 for 4s. Everybody does. But I've really been won over, Kenny, and just been amazed with how, and not just a good hitter, but a complete smart hitter too. I think it's the other way around. He works pitching staffs to get the type of pitches that he ultimately wants. He's willing to go deep into a count. Yep. And to me, that's the first thing I want to see from a hitter, Kenny. Can you? Yeah, it's great. Yeah, 2-0 and 3-1. Yeah, well, can you hit 1 and 2?
There you go.
Show me the guys that can hit 1 and 2, and he can. He's one of them that can. And that's, to me, I've just been amazed at his growth and development as a hitter over the course of the last couple of years. Sensational. He really is.
We were down at the ballpark this past week, and we had Tom Hamilton on the Kenny and JT show.
Okay.
And Hammy talked specifically about Jose, and he already has 3 at-bats this season where he's seen at least 10 pitches, and those 3 at-bats have ended up in home runs. Like you just said, working the pitcher, right? The pitcher has showed him everything he has and then some, and Jose's still standing there, so he's ready for anything. And then he ends up going yard on the 12th pitch or the 11th pitch or whatever it is for a home run. And Jose, oh, then the place goes crazy, and he's circling the bases. That helmet falls off. The chains are hitting him in the mouth as he's running around, strutting like George Jefferson did back in the day, right?
Right, and let's be honest, and I say this as more of a tremendous compliment. I don't mean, but honestly, the dude doesn't have the greatest professional athlete body.
Yep.
He's 5'7", maybe 5'8". One could say a little bit pudgy. And, so he's not the stereotype that Central Casting puts together.
Right.
As, one of the great-looking, strong bodies. I don't know what sport. Doesn't matter. Baseball, football, doesn't matter. That's what Jose is. But what he is he's one of the best hitters, Kenny, for all the reasons I've said that we've seen in a long, long time. You know how I felt about Michael Brantley.
Yes.
And what a professional and outstanding, just almost old school true hitter that Brantley was. Ramirez is the same way.
Yeah.
He's the exact same way. And
with more power, right, Michael?
With more power than Michael, yeah. I don't think pitchers really, again, I just don't. I think they go through hell and torture. How are we going to pitch this guy?
Right.
How do we try to set him up? You can say, well, you can't walk him 4 times a game or even try to pitch around him that much, but nothing seems to phase him.
Yeah, it's amazing, his ability. And you're right. When you look at, I mean, I stood next to the guy and he's looking up at me and I'm 5'11" with my shoes on, right? You know, and it's like, okay, but that's the great thing about baseball. Jose Altuve, Jose Ramirez, Babe Ruth at the other end of the spectrum, right? I mean, in baseball, all shapes and sizes can play this game if you have great hand-eye coordination. And Jose,
so true.
And how about the comment from Jose with the Angels, pitching around him, and they referenced Barry Bonds. He said, "I'm better than Barry Bonds" through a translator. I love the mentality like that, right?
No doubt, no doubt. Like I said, I have really, I just make it a point. I got to see his at bats, Ken.
Yeah,
because it's that special now. And again, if you'd asked me a couple years ago, good hitter, guy that is going to help you. But Kenny, I'd be lying if I said to you that I had any idea that he was going to turn into this dominant and offensive force in Major League Baseball.
I was completely wrong on him as well, Michael. I remember when he and Frankie were coming up and all the talk was about the first round draft pick, not the undrafted free agent, right? And Jose Ramirez and Frankie are coming up through the minors at the same time. And Jose gets there sooner than Frankie does, but then he's got to move and play third base, right? Second base, whatever, because Frankie's playing shortstop. And I remember telling my producer on the Kenny and JT show, Brian Novak, I said, this guy's going to be probably that utility infielder, right? That's what he looks like he'd be great at as a utility infielder. Well, he's been an MVP candidate. And Michael, I just want you to know, I'm thinking so much of Jose these days that earlier today on my Fanatic Sportsbook app, I went in there and they had Jose at plus 5,000 to win the American League MVP.
Mm-hmm.
I threw $5 down. That'll win me $250 if he wins the MVP. And right now, Jose, 54 RBIs through 54 games with 15 home runs, 8 stolen bases already. So he's going to go 20-20 and 100 easily, if not 20-30 and 110 RBIs. And if the Guardians end up winning the division and are one of the top seeds, he'll be right in that running, I think, for MVP. So I jumped on that opportunity today.
Without question. And I think that's a hell of a good play to make. Because I was a little surprised. I looked at it today myself to see what his MVP odds were, Kenny, and I was a little bit astounded.
Right?
I thought that they're gonna drop this down.
Right. That's what I thought too.
Not that he's going to be the favorite, but certainly in the top 5. And just from an odds perspective, Ken, what I saw today, he was more in that 10 range.
Right.
So that's good. Keep him there, and maybe you can.
How about this, Reg?
Cash in, buddy.
How about this? From this morning to when I bet it to where it is now, it dropped from plus 5,000 to plus 4,000.
There you go.
All right.
It's going to keep coming down now.
Yeah. The guys they have in front of him as the favorites, and understandably so, New York Yankees: Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, Bobby Witt Jr., Gunnar Henderson, Kyle Tucker, Adley Rutschman, Jose Altuve is right there with Ramirez. So those are the guys that they've got in the top 10 for the MVP race. So we'll see what happens with it. It's must-see baseball whenever he comes to the plate.
Yep, it is, and it's going to be fun. And throughout the summer, and because you and I have said this before, as much as the NFL and hoops, I mean, man, there is nothing like October postseason baseball when the team that you root for is in it and there. And you and I had that as kids, you growing up in Pittsburgh, me growing up in Detroit, teams that were and played in World Series. And man, there's nothing like it. And now as professionals here in Cleveland, broadcasting professionals, we've experienced that multiple times over with the Indians organization when they started to hit their run in the 90s.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like it. It's the best.
It is. Game 7, every pitch matters from the first inning to the 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th, however long it takes. And it's been painful coming so close twice.
Gut-wrenching was with the Cubs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're every pitch, man, just every pitch you're hanging there and, trying to play with the team that you're rooting for. And because it gets that intense, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And it's a fun thing to be a part of. And hopefully we'll have more of that this year to be a part of it as well. And as the season goes on, we'll talk more Guardians. Coming up, the draft, Michael, in the month of June. The Cavaliers will pick 20th. So we'll see which direction they go in there to try and add to this roster. Do you think, and we'll end on this, do you think by the time of the draft, the Cavaliers will have their head coach in place, or will they draft without a head coach?
Third week in June. That's
I
what
think
it is,
so.
right?
Yeah,
June 24th. No, I think they're going to have their head coach.
Okay, all right.
I do. I think it's the longer you wait, Ken. I just think that there's too much negativity that goes along with that. To be honest with you, so I'd like to. Of course, you want to get the right guy, but we've gone through. I don't know, between. What do we name, a dozen guys?
Close to it, right?
I mean, a couple of those guys are going to be NBA head coaches and successful ones.
Right.
Now, it's the Cavaliers front office job to determine which couple those are and get one of them.
Absolutely. So we'll see how that plays out, and we'll cover all of that here on the R&R podcast. So always great to catch up with you, Reg, and do this. We usually tape each and every Sunday night. So everybody out there in the podcastosphere, wherever you download your podcast from, check it late Sunday night, early Sunday morning, and it's usually up there courtesy of our outstanding producer, Ty Courts. We ask you to subscribe at Press Play Podcast Networks as well, so that way not only can you get our podcast, but all the podcasts, and there's a great variety of podcasts on the Press Play Podcast Network as well.
Yes, there are, and we entice you to check all of them out. Kenny, always good to be with you, man. I look forward to our next go-round here on the Press Play Podcast Network.